So, probably one of my favorite episodes thus far on the Beauty Pro podcast, only because of the realness, the raw truth about life, and the outcome of hope and of an everlasting light at the end of the tunnel that is reachable. My next guest, Laura Chahaia, or you might know her better as LaLa's Updos, shares with me her story, her disease, her real life struggles that she faces every day while she does what she loves, which is serving and inspiring others. You're going to love this episode. And if you do, go rate it on Apple and Spotify. Okay, here we go. Are you a beauty or barber pro looking for that push to do that thing you've always wanted to do, whether it's in or out of the salon, spa, or shop? Are you tired of not feeling good enough, smart enough, skilled enough? Are you tired of not getting a handle on your mental health, boundaries, and insecurities? I'm Christine Sherwood, the Beauty Pro Coach, an internationally certified coach, a salon and spa owner, and your personal Jiminy Cricket. I use my own experiences, good and bad, as a salon owner to help you be more self-aware, authentic, and forward-thinking in your approach to life, in and out of the salon. It's time to reach your version of success with the Beauty Pro Coach podcast. Hello, Miss Lala. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, you are here on the Beauty Pro Podcast. I am so honored because you are such an inspiration to me, and I know to a lot of others. And I know we kind of just like jumped into this episode, into the interview, but I gotta say, just thank you.
No, thank you for having me. I'm grateful for every opportunity to share my story and my advice and my failures and my triumphs with everyone around that want to learn, get inspired, get by. Whatever my words would make a change. I'm happy to. That's actually my love. I always thought that my love is hair, but I eventually realized that my love is people and making a difference in people's lives. So thank you for having me. Hopefully something from my story will resonate with others and will help them get through something that it's happening in their life, career, whatever, because I've been through all.
Yeah. And I want you to share it with us because I know you're from Romania. You're right. And you were just telling me that you moved to Florida in 2018, but what were the steps that brought you to here? What happened?
Here, well, I'm coming from a post-communist country called Romania in East Europe. We are the only Latin country in East Europe. We've been under communism, I think, for over 48 years, if I'm right. And I was born under communism. We had a pretty tough life. We had no knowledge about what's going on outside of our country. The borders were closed. Nobody would ever be allowed to get out of the country. We had only one TV station that was controlled by the government. And they would only broadcast like 2-3 hours daily talking about our president's good things that he does for the people. Everything was rationed. I remember sitting in long lines at 2-3 o'clock in the morning with my mom until 6 o'clock when grocery stores would open, and we would have cards like vaccination cards, but those were for like food. And days we would sit in those long lines since 2-3 o'clock in the morning and wait until 6 o'clock when it would open. We would get inside, sit in line again, and then get our food cards stamped for 2 eggs and half of a bread per person every 2 days. And that was our food. Electricity, water, power, heat, you name it, everything was rationed. I remember doing my homework most of the times at candlelight. and not having any knowledge about what's going on outside. We would learn in school about our countries, states, geography, you know, you name it. But because we were so isolated, I remember as a kid, many times as kids, we thought that we are actually the only country in the world because of how isolated we were. We curfew at 10 o'clock. Nobody would be allowed to be on the streets after 10 o'clock, where you would get jailed. We were not allowed to talk about God, Bibles, anything about the government. People would get paid to talk about others, to tell on others. So I grew up having a pretty tough life and not having any knowledge about what's going on outside. And three of my dad's brothers immigrated illegally in the States, and they managed to cross the border illegally and make it to United States in the 80s. And that's when we started to receive these letters from United States and pictures, you know, describing the life here. And that's when that little heart of a child in me started to dream about a different life than what I was living. And I remember in front of my block, I was living in a very bad neighborhood, literally surviving on my own. Most of the kids in our country were actually all the kids in our country were put in weekly institutions since we were 2 years old, because our parents were forced to work 3 shifts, which means they were never home to take care of us. So we grew up in weekly institutions where we would be dropped at Monday morning and be picked up at Saturday afternoon and spend only one day with our parents. And then once we would turn 5, 6 years old, we would have the key hanging on our neck, and we would be literally on our own doing homework, cook for ourselves, and take care of ourselves all the time. So having that kind of life, when I started to receive those letters and those pictures from United States, depicting a life that was completely different and looked almost like a dream and a fantasy, I started to dream about this. And the tough life that I was living on the streets, you know, and the tough childhood that I was having was pushing me more and more to dream about a different life. And I remember in front of our block, we had a field, which was pretty much our playground, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having that. And that field was blooming with dandelions every spring. And I remember sitting in that dandelion field every spring and blow until I was running out of breath and tell myself, one day I will make it to America and I'll be rich and famous. I made it to America eventually, but I'm still working on the part with the rich.
Well, you're definitely famous for me and many other stylists for sure.
Prompted me to dream about a life in United States, and that happened when I was a child. And eventually, a lot of those dreams that I made and blew into those dandelions in childhood in that field in front of my block eventually became reality. And that's the reason many people ask me, why is your logo having a dandelion there? Why you put dandelion there? And it has a deep meaning, because truly a lot of my dreams became true. And that's how I made it in the States. Like eventually went down and I immigrated legally. I didn't have to cross the border illegally, you know. And I applied for the lottery visa in 2004. My husband won, and we came into the States in 2006. So I've been in the States for 18 years, I think, 2006. I think, yeah. So I've been in the for the past 18 years, and my home for the first 12 years was actually California. And we moved to Sacramento because those three uncles of mine that I was speaking about were living there. And since we had no one, we thought it's going to be easier if we're immigrating, you know, in a city where we have a little bit of guidance. And we made it here in 2006 with $300 in my pocket, a small suitcase, and a 1.5 toddler, having big dreams and plans. And all that got crushed in a second once we made it here. The American dream was really not the American dreams that we've been familiar with in the movies. It was not a fairy tale, and it was definitely not a happy ending at every corner. So we went through a lot of challenges. And the first one was the fact that none of our education from our country was recognized. So I had to, I was 30 years old. I have studied psychology and art in my country, and none of that was recognized. I even went and took my license as a cosmetologist because a lot of my friends told me that I should have a plan B,
Mhm.
told about their education not being recognized. So I did prepare myself with a plan B and took my license before I left Romania in case my other education was not recognized. And to my surprise, not even my cosmetology license was recognized.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I lived in this country at 30 years old with a small child in my arms, no money. I thought I knew English, but then when I made it here, I realized that I don't know any. And I had to start from scratch because nothing
Everything.
I so far was recognized or approved here. So I started my life all over again at 30 years old with a small
Wow.
child, and a lot of prayers and a
Yeah.
lot of packing and unpacking every week, and promising myself that I'm going back home, and wondering if that American dream that I had all my life was just a fantasy.
Hmm. Oh my goodness, there's so much that you shared, and I appreciate it because, I think something that we don't really talk about as beauty and barber pros is that, like, we're always trained, you don't talk about politics or sex or money or your personal life or any of that stuff. But those are the things that really define us,
And
right?
she
So like you're
told us.
like the politics is what molded you to give you that work ethic that you have now,
Absolutely.
and I mean, and we're not going to go into it, but I mean, the world is changing, America is changing so quickly, and there's a lot of people are going to their faith, to God, the Bible, and all of that, which is so awesome. But how do you cope now that you are on the other side, right? You have reached more or less your goals. You have your book Dandelion telling more about your story. You're educating, like more or less you've reached your goals, right? So
Mhm.
how are you coping with that success now, if you will?
Coping with that success, I will tell you something that I had big dreams, and I have managed to turn each of them into reality in my 8 years of career in the bridal industry. Because before switching to the bridal industry in 2014, I was a full-time colorist and
Mm,
cut specialist, and I
mhm,
did not know anything about bridal hair. I didn't even know how to do a three-strand braid 8 years ago. Like, God is my witness.
mhm,
I made it into the bridal industry by accident, messing someone's hair and taking the decision to just get better of something that was out of my comfort zone. And that's how I discovered my creativity and my
mhm,
passion for upstyling. But what I was trying to say with that is that even though I turn each of these dreams into reality, because what is a hairstylist dream when they started a career? The first dream is to actually make a career, right?
mhm,
Uh, or maybe I would say the first dream is to actually make a comfort living from it,
mhm.
right? Because that's
Right.
why you chose that job and that career. And then you want to make a career, and once you start to get known, your next dream is eventually to work with the big brands and get your name out there even more. And once you manage to turn that dream into reality and work with the big brands, you dream about making it on the big stages because you want more, right? We are
Mhm.
human.
Yeah.
We constantly want to grow and get progress in our lives. And once you make it on the big stages, you're dreaming about being on those big stages, representing your own brand, your
Mhm.
own name, right? And once that happens, you're dreaming about getting published, winning awards. And once that happens, it's not much left, right?
Right.
You made it, you got known, you got popular, your work is recognized, you even managed to make it on the big stages and representing your own brand, which is it was a huge milestone for me in 2019. Because as we know, in order to make it on the big stages, it's a long process,
Mhm.
and very few are lucky enough to make it on those big stages.
Mhm.
It takes years and years of practice, years of working for the big brands, to make sure that maybe out of that 1 million people that they work with, you're gonna be a little bit more lucky to be seen, to be heard, to be given that chance to work with them, right? And a lot of times before you actually get on a stage with a brand, it's a lot of working years behind for that brand, where you do regular work, and you go to their booth, and you go to Salon Centric, and you go to Cosmoprof, and you're giving your all to be seen. And for me, I managed to skip all those steps and not have to work for a brand for 10-15 years until they gave me a chance to work at their booth, to prove myself at their booth, and eventually to give me a chance to get on that. And I managed to do that only through my hard work and my persistence in being consistent on what I bring to the market and what I bring to the table, right? And because I've done that, instead of trying to impress someone specifically, I was there just to put my good work out there. And I was focusing from the beginning of bringing my brand up, and working on bringing my brand up. I got all these opportunities from the other brands because they saw the value in what I was bringing, right?
Yeah.
And I made it to the big stages in 2019. And then I did get the awards, and I did get published in all the prestigious magazines in the United States. And then what is left?
Yeah.
Like, maybe come up with your own line of products, maybe open a salon, or maybe open a school. But where else you can go from there is not more that you can do in this industry, right?
Right.
And I managed to come up with my own tool, and then come up with online education, and then open my own school 2 years ago. And I did it all. I did it all. But throughout all that, now that I'm at the point where I cannot educate anymore, because I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that prevents me from using my hands properly, helped me to see things this year from a totally different perspective. Why? Because I worked very hard to fulfill all of my dreams when it comes to my career. And I just saw myself at the beginning of this year losing everything overnight, and I had no control.
Okay. And I had seen the announcement that you made where you're saying, this is my last class. I'm not going to be teaching anymore. And I remember thinking, I wonder why. Okay, all right, whatever. Like, I accepted it, I took it for what it was. And here you are. It's because of your health.
Of my health, yes. Because, both of my conditions are autoimmune conditions, which are most triggered by stress. Nobody knows what causes it, but most of the doctors say it's triggered by stress. So normally it was by stress, right? And not being able to use my hands this year, and being forced to close my academy, gave me a lot of time to meditate and to kind of like do a retrospective of my career and everything that happened so far, and thinking of my personal life mixed with my career. And looking back at these years, what I realize now that I am not able to do what I love the most so far is that through these 8 years of my career, I was so busy to go and fulfill the next dream and the next dream and the next dream, that I never took the time to pause and celebrate each of my achievements. I was in constant and continuous rush. Once I needed to maintain that rush of going after something in order to. And that happened a lot in the beginning of my career, because I was in an unhappy marriage, and I found my relief, right? And kind of like my happiness into away from home, right? And into something making me feel happy and bring me fulfillment. Eventually that changes after a few years. I got divorced, I remarried, I started to be happy home, and I started to see things differently. What I'm trying to say with this is, each chapter of your career and life, you will feel different about your success, and you will see success from a different light and from a different perspective. Like in the beginning of my career, nothing else mattered other than success and being popular and being seen, right? Once I was happy in my personal life, that mattered to me less and less. And it came naturally without even like fighting for it or like rushing for it, right? And now that I'm at the point where I switched from an educator career to being a public speaker, a book author, mentor, business coach, and all this, looking back, I realized that, and I know I don't want to, because I know career means a lot for a lot of people. A lot of people might not feel like me, and they want to do this until the end of their life. But looking back at these 8 years, I realized, and putting down everything that I have achieved, I realized that the true joy, the true joy, and when I say true joy, I mean the things that stay with you, and they're not a 1 day joy, 2 days joy, and then you put it on the shelf and you forget about it and means nothing to you anymore. The true joy was coming from my personal success, and when I managed to have a better relationship with my daughter, when I managed to be present and spend quality time with my daughter, when I got her back, when I almost lost her to suicide in 2020, when my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in 2021, when he went through chemo in 2022, the whole year, and all the responsibility was on my shoulders, making it through that financial struggle and trying to keep everything on my shoulders. And then him being declared cancer-free beginning of this year, I realized that looking back, and putting things into balance and looking at my shelves with my achievements and looking at my personal achievements, I realized that all those shelves meant nothing to me. And I spent almost 8 years of my life rushing through it, trying to get to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, instead of focusing more on what truly brings me happiness. And I was able to pause and think about those things until my health took a toll. And I was forced to take a pause and really put into balance, why am I miserable? Why am I depressed? Why I don't, even though I have achieved everything I wanted, I still don't feel fulfilled and 100% happy. And I don't think we can be 100% happy, but I think we should run more for the things that keep us happy for a long time and fulfill us truly than the things that we put on a shelf and mean nothing to us 2, 3, 4, or 5 years later. Because to be honest with you, if my daughter would be gone or my husband would be gone, none of those achievements would mean anything to me.
Right.
I think life has a way to humble you. And when things like this happen, and especially the world we live in today, and how should I say, we have no idea what tomorrow holds. We don't know what's coming, and nothing looks positive anymore. So I think a lot of the things are happening in our life as a wake-up call for us to truly focus on what's really important, and above all, to be healthy mentally. Because if our heads and our hearts are not okay, our body follows, and so on. And I truly believe that a lot to do with my health issue right now is the stress that I've been putting myself through in the last couple of years, constantly being into a rush, a competitive rush to get to the next thing as the next thing and be better than I was yesterday. And it's nothing wrong. This was my motto all this time. Your success is based on how many solutions you can come up for your problems, not how many excuses you can come. And I went with that all my life. But in the same time, I feel like we very often forget to live our lives truly. And I wanted to say something with that, but I forgot my thought.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, because and I the more we talk, it's so important that we are real. And I feel like in our industry, we're so consumed with the pretty, and there's nothing wrong with being pretty and feeling good, but there's also something to be said about going through it and learning from that. Like, you got to go through the ugly so you can come out even prettier.
That's true.
And you just mentioned before, like, if your head and your heart are not matching, and I say that all the time, you have to match your head with your heart so you can make those 6 figures, right? You can have all the guides in the world and all the steps on how to make your 6 figures, but if you're not right in your head and your heart, it doesn't mean anything. And
Absolutely.
you are a testament to that right now. Like, you are saying it. You have to be happy with yourself first, and then you can create. And so what do you say to maybe like all the bigger brands maybe that have been around for a while, and they're all focused on that go go go, and this is who we are and this is that, when you are so humble, if I can, like, what do you say to those brands that don't have time for the little people, or they don't have time to be real and raw? What do you say to those guys?
I would not say anything to the big brands because I worked in the corporate for 9 years. Okay. And anyone out there. And I don't want to start any
no drama. I'm just trying to be real.
I've been known in this industry, and I could pretty say that I have a how should I put it, an image in this industry and as being very straightforward, and that closed a lot of doors in my nose. But I stayed true to myself, and I gained people's respect because of that. And I would say something probably now that will like stir some waters. But when it comes to the big brands, most of the decisions, and this is coming from experience because I worked in the corporate world for 9 years. I know how it works. When it comes to the big brands, it's the people who work with the talent, who facilitates that communication, right? And then it's the corporate who takes the decisions. And the corporate world has no idea about what actually happens in the hair industry. They don't know. They're number people. And all they care about is the numbers. Okay. If you can bring that number, you're good. The moment you're not bringing that number, you're disposable. Okay. So we cannot blame the people who facilitate that communication between us and the people who take the decision, because the people who take the decision are on a totally different industry than we are. And a lot of times we get frustrated and we feel like we've been used, that used and all that. And I think when it comes to that, it's about learning how to be a good business person, where both parts have something to win from, right? And gain from. And if you do not know how to set your boundaries and how to monetize your skills and your talent and be a good business person, then I recommend you to stop being frustrated, start being mad, go learn, go assist someone, pay for a course, pay for a mentor, pay for a coach that will guide you, and you are not going to be burned. Because why do we know these things? Because we've been there. We've been burned, we've been used, we've been abused. We know the way. And if you do have the talent and they see what you bring to the table and you know you have that and you have value, then you learn how to monetize that value instead of being frustrated and upset and giving advice and going and putting your frustration on social media. Nothing is going to change. The people who take the decision don't see those comments. And even if they see them, they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You're not bringing anything to the table. They have nothing, because you're like renting on internet.
Right.
So when it comes to big brands, honestly, there is no advice you can give to the big brands, because when big brands, it's all about corporate and making money.
Wow.
And
see, I love that.
Serving that purpose, they're going to get rewarded if they know how to play smart.
Okay. So this brings me to this question. What is something that, what's a lesson that you have learned that you feel that everybody should know, whether they're in corporate, whether they're a doctor, a lawyer, a mailman? What is something that those people need to learn that you have learned being in the beauty industry?
One lesson that I have learned is that if you have a skill, you should work towards building your own empire. Doesn't matter what your skill is. If you have the knowledge, the power to put that into practice, and you have that skill to make it happen, yes, it's important to work with brands. Yes, it's important to do free work in the beginning until you're being seen and all that. But you cannot continue to do that for the rest of your life or your career. One thing that I have learned is that you are replaceable. That's the first painful lesson that I learned in my career in the hair industry. You are replaceable. And that takes me to the second part that I said, if you have that skill, why in the world, and you have a passion, like for me, it was bridal hair. And I saw so many people in the bridal industry working for a brand for 10, 15 years, becoming the best of the best and still continue to work for that brand. And for me, it was mind blowing. And it was something that I always tried to stay away from it. My focus from the beginning of my career was to bring my name and my brand up. And it was shocking to me to see how many people have gained so much knowledge. Their skills went all the way up to the roof because of the practice and the training that they received, but still they continue to build someone else's empire. And all I can tell others, first of all, remember, you are replaceable. If anyone more talented than you, and you don't even, it doesn't even have to be more talented than you. If they do the same work that they do and they accept 30% or 40% or 50% less than what you're accepting for your work, they're going to replace you. And maybe they're not even that good at you. But because they are cheaper, you can be replaced by someone like that, right? So you are replaceable. And since your passion, like for me, for example, I would sit in bed and I could not fall asleep. And then I would get all these ideas about some styles. And then I would get out of bed and I would grab my mannequin and I would like try those before I forget them, right? And then the second day, all I am thinking about how I can make my posts look more beautiful, how I can bring more students to my academy and all that. So what keeps you up at night, that passion and that drive, why in the world would you use all that, what God blessed you with, and like literally put it in your lap? Here it is. This is your breakthrough. Why would you use that passion and that drive and that sleepless night and that stress and that passion to build someone else's empire? For me, it's like mind-blowing. Why people choose to do that. And I heard a lot of people, well, I don't have your knowledge. I don't have it either. Open an Instagram account when I was 38 years old. I didn't even know what a hashtag means. I didn't want it to be on Instagram. I don't want to be on Instagram today either. I'm 47 years old. I'm 3 years away from 50. Do I want to be on Instagram? Heck no. Do I want to Pinterest and YouTube? Heck no. I don't want to. But that's the way I make my business work. Not for someone else, but for myself. And why? So the first lesson, you're replaceable. Second, don't let your skills, your passion, your drive to build someone else's empire. It's never late to start, and I'm the living proof of that. Okay, I didn't start my career when I was 20. I started when I was 40, and I made it without knowing anything, with having English as a second language, without having any connections. And this is the excuses that I heard from my students all the time. Well, I don't have your connections. I don't have any connections when I started. I don't even know how to read and write and speak proper English. And I still made it in front of thousands of people on the big stages. Don't give me that. I do not have your knowledge, or I do not have your experience, or I do not have your connection. I had nothing, and I still made it. You know? So don't use excuses to stay away from living the life that you're dreaming about. And hoping that someone else will make that dream happen for you, because it won't. Because most of us, normally, we're pulling everything to us. We don't want to share it with someone else, right? So why would you think that one day someone will fulfill that dream for you? So these are my lessons I tell everyone.
I love it.
Use your skills to build your own empire, and do not take no for an answer. Do you know how many times I've been told that my English is not good enough to be an educator?
What? Okay. Yep. I mean, I can believe that, but I'm hearing you and I understand you. And it's, I mean, honestly, your accent is like super sexy. So whatever.
At issue anymore. But in the beginning of my career as an educator, I heard that a lot.
Yeah.
And funny, not from my students, but from people who are educators telling me maybe work for a brand first and get trained and get educated. And maybe if my English improves, most likely. And you know what? For my first class, I was expecting 7 people and I got 47. And my first show ever, I was the first one who got a standing ovation of over 5 minutes on a lineup that was insane. And nobody knew who I was at that time in that room.
Wow.
My advice is to not take no for an answer, because it's in your power to make it happen. And of course, it's going to happen if you find solutions for that problem. If you come up, still going to be there 5 to 7 to 8 years from now.
So with that being said, what's an insult that you've gotten that is your absolute favorite, that you're just so proud of that you got that insult?
I wouldn't say that I was insulted. We see like East Europeans, we see insult a different way than Americans do.
Okay.
You can't really like get our feathers really, really fast. And because we were born under communists, we've been raised kind of like in the military style, right?
Yeah.
For us to get offended, it takes a lot. And most likely, you're coming with any bullshit to me, I'm going to be like, cut the bullshit. This is not really working. So anything that happens to me that happened to me in the beauty industry, I can't really call it as an insult. What is an insult to me, for example, is someone who I thought is a dear friend to me, that I was there with, that I grew up with. And once I took the big boat and the other person was still in the small boat, the backstabbing and the lying and drama started. So that's an insult for me. Someone whose true character eventually shows up in different circumstances, and that's an insult for me. But you telling me that my English is not good enough, that I'm just a pretty face with no brain, that means nothing to me. You know, if I stop with every dog that barks at me, I will never make it to the distance. Or that over every negative thing that was said to me, I would have never made it where I'm at today. So it takes a lot for me to like really take me out of my comfort zone and respond to something like that.
I love it. I love it. Especially as women, you know, we put up with a lot. And then you need that tough skin to make it through just your day to day. So
I think when we've been called the weak sex, that was a big mistake. I don't think a man could go through what a woman is going.
No, not at all.
But different story.
So let me see what else. Let me
I wanted to add another thing, because you asked that I have learned and that what I would like to tell people. And I told her about being replaceable and focusing on using those skills to build their own empire. But what I've learned the most, especially in the past 3 years, going through issues with my daughter, with my husband, and now my own health, is that you really need to be prepared with a plan B. Even if your career was a successful one, even if you think that you are irreplaceable, even if you think that you have all the control over what you're doing, you never know what tomorrow holds. And I am forever grateful that God put it on my heart 2 years ago to open an online education. And I was pushed to do that online education because I was not able to travel anymore, being home with my husband. You know, so when he started chemo, I couldn't travel anymore. And that's what prompted me to open my academy in person as well, so I can teach from home and not have to travel, because that's how I was making money. Every weekend, I would travel in a salon around the country and teach or to shows. And when I started to think about opening an academy, that's when I started on creating content for an online education, trying to like have a source of income in case he needed my help or I wasn't able to work and had to take care of him. I wanted to have a source of income that will help me make money while I'm sleeping, right? Another thing that I have done, because of a lack of a proper preparation tool in the hair industry, and being used to use one, because that's very popular in Europe and has been popular for the past 20 years. It was just brought here a few years ago. But I have been using a texturizing iron since the beginning of my career, and I knew about that since Europe. And never find something that was giving me a subtle texture and it was allowing me to control the hair without actually seeing that texture. And that's when I came up with my own tool, right, in 2000. And that didn't came with the thought that I should have a plan B and make money while I'm sleeping. I did it out of necessity and because I saw the need of that on the market. But all these steps that I took in the last couple of years, because I launched my tool in 2020, and then in 2021, I launched my online academy, and then last year I opened my in-person academy. But what I'm trying to say with that, in a world where everything goes online and technology is taking over, regardless of how old you are, you need to remember that in order to survive, you need to adapt. And something that we've been born and raised with, coming from a post-communist country. Regardless of your circumstances, you need to adapt and you need to make it happen. And see always the full part of that glass, otherwise crazy. And I've been raised like that, and I have applied that in my life. And I am so happy I did that in the last couple of years because I had no symptoms. Like I literally had no symptoms last year. I was not sick. I have never been sick in my life. And I came home after New Year's Eve and my hands just started acting up. And in a matter of 2 months, I was not able to hold a fork in my hands anymore. So what I'm trying, you don't know when it happens. You don't want to lose everything overnight. And while it might look like you lost everything overnight, you really didn't. If you're hard enough to not put all your eggs in one basket, because just think about it. And a lot of hairstylists do not think about this. The money are coming as long as you use your hands, right? The moment your hands stop working, the money are not coming anymore. Is that where the direction you want to go to? It's time to think about it. And you don't have to be 50 or 60 or 40. You can be 18 and it can happen to anything to you tomorrow. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just trying to make people understand that you can live the life that you're dreaming of if you're enough to put your eggs in more baskets and monetize the skills different ways and different channels, not just through physical work. And when that happened in the beginning of my career, beginning of this year, and I was diagnosed with Raynaud's syndrome and arthritis. And I've been told that there's no treatment for it. And eventually it will just get worse, I had a nervous breakdown. I literally closed everything and I left the house for 3.5 weeks until I put myself back on my feet. But leaving the house for 3.5 weeks and putting in perspective everything that I have done so far and where I'm at right now, I realized that we've been so programmed, and I've been so programmed, that we can make money only through hard work, that we never thought what other ways we can monetize those skills and knowledge. And I realized that I have so much knowledge. I mean, I made it in the hair industry without being a platform educator. I became an independent educator without being trained, without being taught how to teach. I have never taken any bridal classes ever in my career. Everything that I have done, it was through repeated work and testing and exercising and trying on a daily basis, 2 to 3 hours, right? So what I'm trying to say is that, Jesus, I'm getting old.
No. Oh, no, you're getting wiser.
So what I'm trying to say is that you should have a plan B, regardless of how old, how young you are. And you need to keep up with the trends and with the times that you're living in order to make it, and thank God I did that. And even if it was out of my comfort zone, I didn't want to learn how to open a platform of online education. I didn't want to learn how to put voice over my videos. I didn't want to learn how to do any of that. But thank God I did, because look at me. If any of this happened and I would have not had that source of income, what would I do now? This is what I was trying to say, is that we were so programmed to make money only through hard work and through physical work that it never crossed our minds that all the work, the passion, the knowledge, the efforts, the failures, the triumphs that we put into our business to bring it where it is today, that's pure knowledge that others do not have, and mistakes that they do not have to repeat. So, and talking about skills, I realized that I could teach, and I had thousands of students in my career, right?
Mhm.
And I realized that I could teach thousands of students the skill of upstyling, and they will never be able to make money, even if they are Guy Tango bridal hair, if they do not know how to monetize those skills. And this is where I'm trying to get. Okay, it's not enough to you to just be skilled. It's important for you to learn how to monetize those skills through different channels, and not physical work, and have a plan B, and be able to sleep and take a break when you want to.
Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what is something that no one agrees with you about? Personal or professional?
What was that?
What is one thing that nobody agrees with you about?
As far as career goes?
It could be career, it could be personal, it could be whatever.
Okay. One thing that nobody agrees with me with,
Yeah.
other than Europeans.
My family is very European, so hearing you speak, it's very familiar to me.
I would say that one thing that nobody agrees with me and I'm talking about Americans. I am an American and citizen as well, but a different background, obviously,
Sure.
and is the fact that America is no longer a free country, and it's just going to get worse and worse. And we're saying this from experience because we lived through it. We know how control was taken over. We know how our freedom was taken over. And because of that, because we lived through it and escaped from it, we know the signs, we know what it's coming, and we know what it's next. So that's my deepest sadness and pain. Escaping something that you never wanted to live or your children to live ever again, and making it, I mean, seeing it and experiencing it into a country that you never thought something like this is possible.
Yeah. It's somber, right? And it's sobering because it's real.
It's a very sad reality, and it's frightening to see that that nobody is doing anything about it. And for us, it took 48 years to be able to do something about it, and over 80,000 people dead in our country in that 48 years. Over 80,000 people died in jail trying to fight that regime and that control over us. And unfortunately, in order to take that down, it's going to take many years. And I think it was possible for that to happen so far throughout history, because the form of control was physical only, and we did not have technology. But I think it's going to get harder and harder to get to that point from now on. But let's not get into politics, because nobody talk politics. But the problem is that because nobody likes to talk politics anymore is because why these things are happening. And it's not, I like when I talk to people, they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. I'm not into politics. And they do not realize this is not politics. This is about your life.
Yeah.
And your children and your future. It's about your daily life living. This is not about politics. This is about you standing for life and goodness.
That's such a good point that you had. Nobody wants to talk about it. And so here we are in this really heartbreaking, weird place in history because, I don't want to talk about that. That's too much. But I'm happy that you are, and that we are talking about it now. I wasn't expecting to, but yeah, this is great.
My book, actually, I've been wanting to write this book, my memoir, for the past 8 years. And the funny part is that every time I had a hair show or a class, which are every weekend for the past 8 years, except this year, I would share a little bit about my story, about how I made it here and my success in the hair industry. And to my surprise, after each show presentation in each class, nobody said anything about my craft and what I taught in that class, which I found it weird because my craft is good, and that's why people were coming to my classes and why a successful career. But most of the people waiting to talk to me at the end of the class and the show would talk about my story and how it inspired them to go get that relationship, go back to school, take their license, open their own salon, how it motivated them to chase those dreams, you know. And my excuse was always that I do not have the time. I do not have the time. And everyone would tell me, you should write a book. If you would write that book, I would buy it tomorrow. And I heard that message for the past 8 years. And my excuse was always that I do not have the time for it. I do not have the time for it. I do not have the time for it. And God made it happen this year. He was like, okay, how about tell more about your story and what really matters? And I'm going to help you make time for it.
I love that. I love that. You don't even know, like, in the show notes of this episode, we're going to have links to your book and to your classes and to your website and everything, because I feel like the next generation of hairdressers, the hairdressers who are already established, beauty and barber pros, they need to learn this. They need to hear these truths.
And my book, the beginning of my book, since it's a memoir, it talks about my story from my birth to today, including my health issues and closing my academy and everything. But a lot of, like, I would say half of my childhood, it's life under communist. So if people are interested to learn more about what that means, they're going to be able to find it in my.
Look how pretty. I love it. I love it.
Knows now why it's called Dandelions.
Yes. So what do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for what difference I made in people's life, not about hair. I just want to be remembered about how I treated people and what kind of I made in their life. And I haven't had an easy life, and I didn't have a lot of friends in this country. The more I grew, the more you grow, and the more successful you become, the more lonely you are going to become, and not by choice. I because of the hardship that I've been through in this country, and not only through my childhood, through my teenagers years, people would learn about everything in my book. I didn't have an easy life, and I didn't have an easy journey, and I have never received the kind of kindness or advice or support that I needed in life, you know. And I remember here and there receiving that from someone and realizing what a huge difference that made in my life. And I made a promise to myself to always be what this world lacks. And I feel that not only today, but in general, it lacks truth. It lacks honesty. It lacks unconditional love. It lacks kindness, you know. And I promised myself that I would be in other people's life whatever I have lacked and missed in mine. And because I have received it not very often, and I saw what a huge difference it made in my life, this is what I want to be remembered for, how I made people feel. And not that I changed their life through a story, but how I helped them see things from a different perspective and go to that dream and not take no for an answer, and know that there is hope and there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because I'm the living proof of that, you know?
So I know you mentioned your daughter a couple times, and I'm very close with my mother, who has been a hairdresser my entire life. And how is your daughter?
My daughter
How's she
is
doing?
Best friend. She bloomed into a beautiful young lady. She just turned 19 in November. She is very proud of her mama. She was raised in the places I worked. I worked 3 jobs for 9 years before I switched to the bridal industry and made a career, and I was able to leave my other 2 jobs. So my daughter didn't really had a regular childhood. She didn't have like very nice clothes. She didn't have sleepovers. She didn't have a nap at noon. You know, she slept in the back of my salon, in the people's couches on weekends, in my office, renting apartments. And this is how my daughter remembers her, or I thought my daughter remembers her childhood. And I felt guilty for the past 8 years, constantly thinking about the way I raised my child, and that I did not offer her the childhood that I thought she deserved, although I was trying really hard, you know. But you don't overnight.
Right.
And all those thoughts and all those doubts and guilt that I felt for the past 8 years dissipated and disappeared 2 years ago. I was in LA for the American Influencers Awards, nominated for the Stylist of the Year. And I don't know if people are familiar, but American Influencers Awards, it's a beauty award where the nail industry and the makeup industry is celebrated together with the hair industry. So it's not just the hair awards, right? And a lot of the makeup artists, influencers, and legends from the makeup industry were there. And my daughter is passionate about makeup, and she begged me to take her with me at the awards, and I did. And I got a chance to go behind the scenes to present an award and come in contact with all these influencers from other parts of the beauty industry, right? And my daughter implored me, like begged me. She was like, "Mom, can you ask at least one of them if I could take a picture with them after the awards at the party?" So I was able to talk to all the big influencers in the makeup industry and tell them about my daughter. And all of them said 100% yes, Lala, we're going to take a picture with your daughter at the party. And we make it to the party after the awards. And I'm grabbing her hand to take her to the makeup because, of course, all of them, we were in groups, the hairstylist with the hair, makeup artist with the makeup artist. And I took her there to introduce her to her idols and for her to be able to take a picture with them. And before I got a chance to introduce her to everyone, my daughter went and shook everyone's hands in that circle. And she did not introduce herself as Debbie. She said, "Hi, I'm Lala Sabdi's daughter."
Oh.
"Hi, I'm Lala Sabdi's daughter." And she presented and introduced herself to everyone in that circle as Lala Sabdi's daughter. She was so proud that she is my daughter. It didn't even cross her mind to say her own name. And if I had any doubts that I didn't do the right thing that night, and I remember the second day we were in LA eating ice cream, and I said, and this is for all the moms out there that think that they are not doing the right thing, that because I've been told when I went to school that I should not go to school, that I should be home with my daughter, and that I should not have that many jobs, that I should like wait until my child grows to go after a career or do that. And I know there are a lot of mamas there that feel that guilt and feel like they're not doing what they are. And I want them to hear this. Second day, I asked my daughter and I said, "What do you remember from those 9 years where mama dragged you with her at every place of work and you were like sitting in that small office in a corner being quiet, or you would go and sleep on people's couches in the weekends when I was doing bridal hair, or like sitting in the back room of the salon?" And she looked at me like literally in shock, and she was like, "What? I don't remember that, Mom. I remember you were letting me to wash people's hair at the sink with you, and you would let me play with the mannequin dolls, and you would always buy me the food that I like, which was junk food." Of course, I didn't have the time to cook all that, right?
Right.
I remember that everyone was nice when you were taking me to people's houses. They would let me play with their dolls, and then you would let me put flowers in people's hair. And when I asked my daughter what she remembers from those 9 years of struggle, where I thought I'm not doing the right thing, everything that my daughter listed was quality in her mind and her eyes. That was quality time spent with her mom. She didn't mention one thing about not having nice clothes, not having a sleepover. She didn't mention anything. She did not remember any of that. All she remembered is how much she did with her mom, wherever we were. So if anyone out there thinks that they're not doing the right thing, I am telling you that your kids will not learn how to live the life of their dreams if you're sitting home and you give up on yours. You cannot teach your children how to build the life they dream if they see you sitting at home and giving up on yours. And I taught my daughter by example without even knowing. And I promise you, you're doing the right thing.
You see that mother-daughter relationships and mother-daughter businesses are so powerful for me, because I am one of those children, seeing my mom work her ass off, having a divorce, getting through it, not ever stopping, That's the biggest inspiration for me to do what I'm doing today. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be in this industry either.
Right.
And so
would have had the same impact on you if she chose to stay home and give up on all her dreams?
oh, I would just be I would be a couch potato. I would be nothing. I probably wouldn't have even gone to school. Like I would just, no, we need the mothers out there. You got to keep doing it. You can't give up. You cannot give up. So thank you for sharing that. And I know your daughter is proud of you. She proves it every day, I'm sure.
She's my bestie.
I love it. So time is escaping, but what is a question that you wish I would have asked you, and how would you have answered?
A question that you would... One question that nobody asks me when I am being interviewed is, how do you discover what your passion is? I got so many students that came to my classes that told me, I got in this industry because my mom was a hairdresser, or I got in this industry because I was not good in college. And this is most of the excuse. I don't know why a lot of people have this image about being a hairstylist, that if you're not doing good in college, this is the
right. And yes, I think about that too.
I was not like school, so I thought, this is good, it's just 1 year, and then I told me, I knew all my life that I wanted to be a hairdresser. I played with dolls since I was a child, and I always wanted to do hair. And I had a lot of students asking me, Lala, how do you figure out what your passion is or what you do in life? I am 20 years old, or I'm 30. And I even had students that were 40 and 50, and they were like, you know what? I never felt like I was I really knew what I was doing, or that I know what to do, or I'm wondering, this is it. This is what I have done so far, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I think it's really important for people to realize that whatever you started with doesn't necessarily need to be the end of it. I did art when I finished high school, and then I went to psychology, and then I worked in a shoe store, and then I worked with kids with problems, and then I came here and I became a property manager, and then I worked in senior houses, and then I decided to become a cosmetologist, and I was a cut and colorist, and look at me, I was an educator for the past 8 years, and now what? So what I'm trying to say here is that doesn't matter that what necessarily was your passion when you're in your 20s is going to be your passion in your 30s, and what was your passion last year doesn't necessarily mean that you have to continue with that. The moment your heart and your soul and your mind stop feeling fulfilled with what you're doing, I think it's time for you to start looking into what other skills you have, and not necessarily skills, because a lot of times we love to do something, but because we think we are not experienced or skilled, we cannot do that, and we stay away from it. Everything is learnable. When we came into this world, we didn't even know how to suck that milk from our mama's breast, right? So what I'm trying to say with that, it's very important for you to listen to your heart and what makes it happen. And even if you think that's unachievable, remember that what you do now was unachievable 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important to listen to your heart in order to feel happy and fulfilled with what you're doing, regardless of what you're doing in life, personal, career. Likewise, when it comes to figuring out what to do, you have to go and dive deep in your heart and realize, does this thing really makes me happy? Am I going and doing that because it fulfills me and makes me happy and also pays my bills? Or am I going there only because it pays my bills? Because if it only pays the bills, you can go only that far, and eventually that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for this. Oh my goodness. I am so excited for the listeners to hear this. I thank you, Lala. I'm going to do a quick outro and then we'll talk a little bit after. But Thank you for being here. Listener, if you are here listening to the BeautyPro podcast, this is Laura Chahaia. Am I saying that right? Chahaia. Okay. So
a lot of people call me Chihuahua, so it's fine.
Oh my God, no. So all of Lala's links are going to be in the show notes, on the YouTube video, on the podcast episode, on Spotify and Apple. So make sure you leave your feedback and definitely buy Lala's book. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next week.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Was that not the realest episode of the BeautyPro podcast? For sure. I'm so blessed to have had this convo with Lala and be able to share it with you, my dear friend and listener. I hope it brought you joy and inspiration as much as it did to me. Definitely go check out Lala's contact info in the show notes. Go get her book. You will cry, you will laugh, you'll realize your dreams are totally possible. As always, if you loved this episode, go watch it on YouTube, leave your comments, leave your reviews on Apple Podcasts, and your star ratings on Spotify. Until next time. If you loved this episode, subscribe to the BeautyPro Podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to leave your reviews, stars, feedback so I can continue bringing the content you deserve and want most. Your feedback fuels this podcast. The more you give, the more you get back. You can follow me at The Beauty Pro Coach on Instagram and Facebook. Want to contact me directly? Email me at befree@goldentruthcoaching.com.